Welcome to our video series on vascular streak dieback in ornamentals. Our speaker, Mike Munster, will describe the symptoms of VSD in ornamentals. Mike is the plant disease diagnostician for commercial ornamentals at the Plant Disease and Insect Clinic at North Carolina State University. Thank you so much for joining us today, and please go ahead with your presentation.
All right, thank you, Sophia. Thank you for inviting me. So yes, I'm going to talk about the symptoms of vascular streak dieback or VSD, but specifically on the main host that we see it on. Redbud, of course, being far and away the most common, with maple and dogwood being a distant tie for second and third place. And there are many, many other genera of woody plants on which this has been found, but we're going to focus on the main ones here today. Starting with redbud, one of the most important symptoms that you will notice is a scorched-like marginal necrosis or burning dead tissue around the edges of the leaves. And this could be confused with bacterial leaf scourge, but it is actually caused by the VSD. Other folks have mentioned seeing chlorosis or yellowing on redbud, although that's not one that I particularly associate with it. The scorching symptom, though, for sure. Another external symptom that you'll see is dieback or just leaf loss. You wouldn't know which it was unless you cut and looked at the cambium on the leader, the main stem, or on a single side branch. I do want to say that the pattern of the symptoms on the plant will depend on, we believe, the type of infection or the way infection occurred and how long it was since infection took place. So there may be just an individual branch or two or the leader, and in other cases it may be the whole plant showing symptoms. So be aware that there can be differences that way as well. Another interesting symptom that you'll sometimes see is what's being called mouse ear. So shoots will come out with leaves that are much smaller than normal and oddly colored. So you can see on the far right here some fairly light green, but almost bleached in the center picture there, and a reddish color on the far right. So the mouse ear symptoms, again, associated with VSD and showing a discolored leaf as well as a smaller than normal one. Another symptom that I may have seen once, although it wasn't on a tree that's been confirmed to have VSD, but I know others have reported, is flowering out of season. So if you're seeing fall shoots, or fall buds and the flowers coming out on the redbud, that would be another indication that you may have VSD. Once you cut into the plant, that's when you get the more distinctive and diagnostic symptoms, though. And the important thing to look for would be a streaking or marbling of the wood, oftentimes in multiple years growth. And this would be in areas that have green cambium overlaying them. So we're not looking at a canker in which you would have a more generalized discoloration of the wood possibly, and which you would definitely have dead cambium. So this is a vascular discoloration, again appearing as streaks if you cut it lengthwise, or as a sort of marbling if you cut across the stem. Sometimes you may see a discoloration of the inner bark, and I can't say for sure this is a VSD symptom, but I'll show a couple of instances later where I have reason to believe that it may be something that you'll see, maybe especially in dogwood. Turning to maples, the maples that we most often see, or that I have seen, have been either red maple or Freeman, which of course is a hybrid of red and silver maple. And here again, you will notice the vascular streaking, the streaking within the wood of the stem. You can see it here in both the longitudinal section and the cross section, and you'll see symptoms on the tree itself where, well, one thing that's mentioned as off color or fall type coloration on individual branches out of season. You see here, we've got some dieback, or again, see the dieback or leaf loss there. And in this particular case, notice that the streaking was in the main stem of the tree. And again, this may be related to where the infection occurred as to where you're going to find the vascular streaking, either lower or farther up. So that if you're going to be collecting a sample for diagnosis, be sure and include branches of different diameters from the main stem if you can, and then a couple of smaller steps down so that we can find exactly where the fungus is active. Notice that in the far right picture here, this would be a conventional, I'll call it canker or dieback. In this particular case, Phomopsis, the fungus Phomopsis was present. And you notice there's that very sharp line between where the cambium is alive and where it's dead. So that would not be a particularly VSD symptom, but it's often the case that trees with VSD will also have different kinds of canker diseases. This is an interesting one where the symptoms on maple, again, as we've described, the off coloration, dieback or defoliation, the marbling in the wood. This was a case that was never solved, but it was probably VSD. It came in the year before our first confirmed case of VSD did. So I wanted to include this as also symptoms that you would look for that would be suspicious. Devin Bealey of the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services likes to talk about the one symptom in maple being the necrosis or the blackening of the petioles. So that might be something else to keep an eye out for. Then on dogwood, again, here you'll see, well, these are sent in with dieback as the described symptom, but if you notice the twigs there are still green in the tree on the left, although you do see that they've fallen off, the leaves have, and then on the portion of the tree there on the left, you'll notice a scorch symptom. But you may see even more dramatic sort of wilting symptoms on dogwood. These two here were from the nursery, but here was a case that was in a home landscape not that long after being transplanted from the nursery, but much more dramatic wilting symptoms here, and in this case, the leaves hanging on. With dogwood, this is probably the most important distinction among the three. With dogwood, the internal symptoms can be subtler. So you may have evident streaking, as you see there in the photo on the left, but the streaking may not be as easy to detect in dogwood as it is in other hosts. And I have seen some blotchy discoloration of the inner bark in a couple of cases with dogwood. And I would say that's something else to be on the lookout for, even though I wouldn't call it a definitive VSD symptom. So that pretty much is a brief capsule of what things to look for on our three main hosts that vascular streak dieback is affecting.
Thank you so much for this presentation. It was very useful. I have one question for you. I was wondering if growers can drop off their samples directly at the NC State Plant Disease Clinic.
Yes, you can certainly do that. And I would encourage you to go through your county cooperative extension agent when you do. If you're outside the state of North Carolina, you will also have a clinic in your state that will be able to assist you. And for those in North Carolina who want to check out our website, you can go to pdic.ces.ncsu.edu and get more information there.
Thank you so much for your time and for making this presentation. It was great to have you.
Oh, again, you're very welcome, Sophia, and I hope this is helpful to all those who have watched.
Thank you.